Welcome to Stranger Encounters. I'm Tommy Simon. Today's guest is Tarells Burton. Tarells has an amazing story, really inspirational, really emotional, and I hope it's a story that shows you that people can be reformed. Not of other people's will, but of their own free will, and become what they want to be. And Tarells, in my opinion, is a perfect example of this. He was arrested for murder at the age of 19 years old, involved in a gang shooting. And 2 years ago, Tarells was released from prison. And in this amount of time, in 2 years, he not only started his own business as a welder, and began working for himself, but he also started a nonprofit organization in order to help teenagers steer clear of the gang lifestyle. So enjoy Tarells Burton. People have an idea like when somebody makes a mistake in their life, that they're defined by it in so many cases. And I mean, I'm sure you've dealt with the stigma of, once you've been arrested or for a crime, then people want to call you a criminal, and it's like, well, no, you're not defined by your past. You can create your own future. And that's why I love your story so much, and I thought it was so inspirational.
Thank you, sir. I appreciate that.
Yeah.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
Now, most of the people that are going to hear this podcast have never heard your story. So can you kind of give us tell us where you came from and a little bit about your teenage years and how you've gotten to where you are today?
Yeah, well, my name is Tarells Burton Sr. I'm 39 years old. I'm from Denver, Colorado. I guess for me, I started, I come from a family of 7 brothers and 4 sisters. Kind of a pretty big family. So, the neighborhood I grew up in, which is the Five Points, Cole Whittier neighborhood. To me, it's all the same 5 Points, but then they broke it all down, and I guess now it's the Rhino District or whatever you want to call it. A lot of gentrification. So, we grew up in this neighborhood, man, running around in the streets. I'm a twin, so I had a twin brother. It was so many of us as a child, as my teenage years. So at about the age of 13 or 14, about 93, which is around the summertime, the time of summer of violence. I don't know if people remember what that is, but about 93 was the summer of violence out here in Denver, where, so many violent deaths, gang deaths, shootings, drive-bys. And that was the time that my brothers and I decided to start a gang on the side, of my mother's home. And this gang was formed because, we felt like we could all just stick together. It was more like a clique thing. And I had no idea that what it would be today.
Right.
It
so
turned into a gang and.
So
just go ahead.
No. I just want to have this discussion just for a second because I think this is important. There's a lot of stigma around the word gang, and what I think what people don't understand is there's I don't know if it's an inherent nature. A lot of people say it's natural. I don't know if I buy the whole natural thing, but there's a desire to be part of a tribe in some way, shape, or form. Now, y'all are 93. I'm 39 years old as well. So you're about 13, 14 years old at this time.
Exactly.
And so there's 7 of you. And this is brothers looking out for each other. I mean, that's really inherently that's what we're talking about.
That's exactly, in our case, yes, I'm talking about real bloodline brothers just saying, look, we're just going to stick together because we can trust us. That's basically, and I'm talking about we thinking like this at 13 and 14. This is me and my twin brother. Mm-hmm. So, it was more of we just hanging out, we're going to stick together, and then it turned into, it just kind of catapulted into this, because we're on the east side, other people was turned into something that it wasn't, and it ended up being a gang, Trade 5 Outlaws. Mm-hmm. And yeah, that's what it is with that. So
yeah, well, and there's in some way, it makes a lot of sense what y'all are doing, because like you said, in '93, that was a violent time there in Denver. So y'all are watching each other's back. You're looking out for each other. You're trying to be safe, like you don't want your brother to get hurt. Your brother don't want you to get hurt. Y'all are trying to be safe and look out for each other. Now it evolved beyond that. And how did that evolution begin to take place?
I think it just began to take place over the years of different, people, joining the gang, and, other individuals kind of, I guess for lack of better words, moving around a different way, because when it started, it was a different kind of mindset with my brothers and I, but then other people outside of the family more or less would, have their own type of view, and, without notice, it was just kind of, spiraled to a different way to where now, it's labeled as this, that, and the other, and there was different people with their mind frame of not saying it's more of a family thing, it was more of a gang thing. So I think at the end of the day, man, the people that came, and when people join gangs, it's more like they want to feel, a part of something, because at the end of the day, everybody wants to be safe, and it's like, okay, if I hang out with these people, even if I don't be active like them, I know that I can be protected and I can be safe. So it's like, for us, it was a family thing, and I'll be honest, man, I kind of it's more of a regretting thing now, because of the situation that I've been through, and what I've experienced in my lifetime.
Okay, well, let's move to that. Like, let's get into your experiences and how your life was affected by the choices that you were making while running around in your gang.
Yeah, well, let's say in about 2002, so I'm fast forwarding, we had done a lot, my brothers and I, just, running around the neighborhood, man, doing things that we weren't supposed to do. In 2002, my twin brother, he was driving in a vehicle. It was him and about 4 other people, about 5 people total in a car. They were driving. There was alcohol involved, and they got into a car accident. And the other person that was driving the other vehicle was, they were intoxicated as well. They got into a really bad car accident, and my twin brother was killed in that car accident in 2002, April the 16th. That changed my life. He was in the vehicle with 2 of his female friends and 3 friends of ours. And I believe 3 of the people in that vehicle actually went through the windshield. That's how bad the car accident was, the impact. And my twin brother was the only one who had his seatbelt on, and he was the only one who passed in the car accident. Me and my twin brother, we were really, really close. I mean, at the end of the day, when we didn't have nobody, we had each other, him and I. It was just this certain kind of bond him and I had. And, he took a lot of stuff to his grave that I'm sure I would take with mine, because of the simple fact that there was so much other things that we had to experience, him and I, together as twins. So when he passed, I felt alone, like part of me had left too, and I began to spiral out of control, drinking, drugging, active gang violence, active violently gang acting. And when I ended up at a club, shortly after my twin brother was killed, I got into an altercation. It escalated outside with a rival gang, and shots were fired, and unfortunately, I took the life of a young man.
Now, at this point, with your brother's death, and you said you began drinking and drugging and really actively involved in some violent gang activities at this time. Now, was this all right? So obviously you were distraught over your brother's death, but was it internally? Was there like a nihilism? Was it just like it's all for nothing? Nothing matters anymore, or were you trying to preserve something?
I think it was just more like, my best friend. He's not here anymore.
Hmm.
And, again, there's a lot of things that him and I had experienced to where we know, like, okay, we know we've never got into it, him and I. We never argued. We never fought. He was 23 when he passed away. So, at the end of the day, there was a life there. Does that make sense what I'm trying to say, as opposed to, at birth, losing your twin in that 23 years, you feel me?
Yeah.
So, yeah, man, it wasn't nothing like more of an annihilation. It was just more like, I was so crushed and hurt because I know that now I felt at that time that, now I got to do this alone. Because when I had needed somebody to run to, it was him on a personal level, if that makes any sense, outside of the game.
Right. Yeah. And so your activities were ramping up, and then you got in an altercation at a bar with a rival gang. Y'all ended up outside. Shots were fired, and you took a young man's life. What at this?
Unfortunately.
Yeah. No, absolutely. It was horrible. Now, were you arrested immediately? Did you go turn yourself in?
No, not at all. Yeah. So, I had left the club that night, and I understood what had happened. So maybe about a week and a half later, I walked down with a few family members and turned myself in. And I knew that I had to pay, own up and be responsible for, what I had done.
Right.
I also knew, man, that, that wasn't who I was. I wasn't just, I'm a fighter. So I wasn't just going around saying, okay, this is what I'm going to do. Everybody's going down. No, it wasn't nothing like that. It was literally like, okay, wow, it's serious now. I went through the court hearing. Ultimately, I was ended up sentenced to 30 years for second-degree murder. And they gave me 30 years plus 5 years parole. When I went inside, it was so hard and rough for me because, at 24, because it happened right after my twin brother had passed. So at the age of 24, the last thing I heard the judge say was, he hit the gavel and said, I see you when you're 54. And I broke all the way down. Other people in the courtroom broke down. At 24, that's life. So in my mind frame at the time, so mature, I didn't understand that. So, I realized in the first few years in prison it was so hard, it was rough, because the stuff, the violence or whatever the incidents or the beef that you had outside, it follows you in there, because you got to think that the same individuals that you're out here in the streets, they're in the streets too. So if they're in the streets, ultimately, if they getting caught for something, y'all gonna all end up in the same area, in the same place, which is prison. So a lot of this stuff trickled and followed me inside. And so for the first few years, it was rough. It was still gang banging. It was still fights. It was still whatever it was. Then I realized, I had 2 children still out there. At the time, my son was 6 and my daughter was 4. I just gave it all up. I just, woke up one day and gave it all up. And I was done. I was done gang banging signs. Don't call me by my moniker. I was done with everything. And those that still wanted to live that lifestyle, even while in prison, I pushed myself away from it. I realized, man, that I had to change me and change who I am in order to make a difference, regardless if I stay in there 15 years or 30 years.
And how old were you whenever this happened?
I was 24 years old when I went in. By the time when I said that, okay, I'm done, I'm making a change, I was 27.
27. So,
and from that point on,
And was this all right? So this was obviously a conscious decision.
Yes, it
You
was. It was a
obviously
conscious decision to make a change.
you were taking you understood taking responsibility for your actions. You even though that you had made a crucial mistake, you had the character to say what I did was wrong and I have to take responsibility for it. You turned yourself in.
Yes, sir.
I'm sure it
Yes,
wasn't
sir.
an easy decision. I'm sure you went through a lot of conversations with family over that. But so at 27, you're like, okay, if anything positive is ever going to come out of this, I have to separate myself from this lifestyle. I can't. I'm in prison because of this lifestyle, so I can't keep going down the same road because I'm just going to keep getting in more trouble. Basically, is what you're saying. And you have children. You had a son and a daughter, right?
Yes, sir.
Okay. And so, like, wait,
Yeah, I was, yes.
your son is like 9 now, when you're 27. And how old was your daughter?
Yeah, something like that. She was 6. I mean, 9. She was 7. They're 2 years apart. 2 days
Okay.
and 2 years apart.
Okay. So, what was your relationship with your children like while you were in prison?
I kept a relationship with them. Letters every week. Visits when I could, but prison's not close to the city, so
Right.
Just because you go to prison, life doesn't stop. So when people could bring them out there, they would bring them out there. But as far as phone calls and letters and communication, I kept that with them.
Right.
I kept that with my children. It was important to me.
Hmm.
So yeah, the first few years, man, I gave it up. After 27, and I ended up joining the School of Christ. It's a School of Christ International. It's a in-cell-based program. It's a Christian-based program. It's a program that you go through. I ended up graduating that program. I got many accolades up under my belt, so I learned how to weld while I was in prison. I learned culinary arts. In my mind, I was thinking, okay, I don't want to be a 40-year-old man flipping burgers. I said, so whenever it happens, I want to make sure I can be able to get out there and take care of myself because I'm going to have to start all the way over. Technology was different. When I went in, it was a flip phone, and you can just take a camera, and, take a picture, and, I knew everything would be different. So I'm glad that I had made that conscious decision. Fast forward, it was easier for me then once I changed my ways in prison because I knew, that this is my choice. So I knew that my son and my daughter would begin to hear the stories of the lifestyle that I used to live, and I understood that. So I always never talked to my kids about that life and what they heard and they asked me about. I'm very open and transparent with my kids, and I explained to them the type of things that I did and what they asked me about only. I did never share anything with them, just, on GP because. And, again, I didn't ever want my kids to understand and see that's that side of me, but what they hear. But I never kept it away from them if they ever bothered to me when they called. You understand what I'm saying? Or when I called them.
Yeah. I mean, it's better that you don't want that to be the only impression they have of you, obviously. But at the same time, if they start getting those legends in their ear and the stories, you don't want it to be like a Paul Bunyan type myth to where you're being idolized for that lifestyle that you were living. You wanted to be able to point your kids in the right direction by expressing to them honestly, look, yes, there was this part in my life when I did this, but that's not, I've come to realize that was wrong, and that's why I changed my ways, and this is what I'm doing now. So you're really, really working very, very aptly in trying to create the right type of parental figure for them to look up to and to emulate later in life. And you understood that what you had done prior to where you were currently at wasn't how you wanted your children to live. So yeah, I understand completely. That makes a whole lot of sense.
Yes, sir.
But if I understand your story correctly now, that's not exactly how things went.
Not at all.
Yeah.
So yeah, again, just because you change, just because you're humble, just because you say, okay, I'm turning, I'm good. I'm turning the other cheek on everything that's coming to me. That does not mean that the people that you had beef with, people that were in your lifestyle, has changed also. So, don't ever expect or think that because you changed, other people have. And I ran into situations like that to where I've had to really be tested. So in about 2015, after spending 12 years in prison, I had went up for parole, and my family, everybody was there. I mean, again, I didn't know that I would even come up that soon, but because I changed in the beginning, the first few years, I didn't get rid of no good times. So I had all my good times. So my time started moving in backwards. So I lost 2 years, which moved my parole up faster because of good time and because of my behavior in prison.
Right.
So I went up for parole. All my family was there. They denied me for a year. They said not enough adequate time. I go back up in 2016, in March of 2016, and I get paroled. And my son and my daughter ecstatic, like, wow, okay, that's what's up. Man, It's just like it's here now. I would tell them all the time, like, hey, baby girl, that's what I call my daughter. Like, Junior, that's what I call my son. I'm going to be home before I graduate. And I've always been a believer in manifestation. I believe that what you think is what you get. What you see is what you receive. I've always thought like that. And every time I would speak that to my daughter and my son, like, I'm going to be home before you graduate. I didn't know how, but I didn't ever want to speak negative to my children. And my son was so excited. And a week before I came home, I get a call while I was working in culinary arts. It's a college course. I spent 3 years in there, so learned how to cook very well. I get a call from the chaplain office. And I get a call down there, and 6 months before that, I got a call before, and it was a call because they said that my older brother had passed away. Just out of nowhere, he just passed away. He was 37 years old. This was literally 6 months before I got parole, so
yeah.
I get another call down there, and usually when you get a call in prison from the chaplain, usually it's always not good. It's always something bad. So they go in, man, and when I go into the office, the chaplain, like, he's like bawling, like he's crying because he remembers that I just came in there 6 months ago, for my brother. So now I'm thinking, like, what's going on? And, I get on the phone, man, and my kid's mom tell me that my 18-year-old son was shot and killed.
Yeah.
Excuse me, I'm sorry.
No, you're fine. I'm just thinking. My oldest son is he'll be 21 this year, and I can't imagine you made decisions. Like we all make decisions, and we all do things in our lives, and it's not always the best decision. We and you got to suffer the consequences for your decisions. And oh man,
yeah.
You were gone his whole life, and you're finally gonna get to be a dad, and he's gone. And I was talking to my wife about your story, and I was telling her, I was like, it's crazy. I was like, because he's been on both sides of that gun, like really, you've been on both sides of the gun. You're not the one who was shot, but I'm sure in some way you were killed, and oh man, that's yeah, man. God, it's just, it brings tears to my eyes, just thinking about how it goes from so exciting to so devastating. And the way you reacted when you got out of prison, I thought was probably number one. It probably had to be the hardest because you acted. You did not react. I think that's so important that people understand. You acted with purpose, and you did not react. Because if you would have reacted, you would have been right back in prison. And you got out in time to go to your son's funeral, if I'm not mistaken.
Yeah, it was the hardest thing I had to do was to get out and prepare a funeral to bury my son that I ain't seen in 13 years. I mean, it's like I was so excited. I wanted him to see the man that I had became, the man that he knows as his dad, as Tarells Burton Sr., and not as T-Row, as my moniker, because I'm not that man. That old is gone. Beholder knew is who I was, and it devastated me because I know that, you know, even gang unit out here, the police out here, like, they still to this day, they said, like, look, they go to my parole officer and say, hey, look, man, like, we know this kid, like, we know, like, you know, he was a real life, excuse my language, asshole jerk, and watch him, you know what I'm saying, because he has done more for less, and his son has been killed. And y'all really think he's just going to lay back? This is how they're talking to him. My parole officer's coming to me. I'm like, they don't understand. So I knew that I had to be strong for my family, for my daughter, and bury my son. You know, my son was cremated, and that was the hardest thing that I ever had to do. That following week, I went down to the food stamp office. I knew that I had to just, you know, let's keep it moving because 13 years, this is crazy. I'm not going back. Junior, this is what I've been doing. So I'm in the food stamp office. I needed help. I need assistance. I have nothing. I'm trying to go down here to get food stamps, man. They paroled me back to the same neighborhood that I left out of. The only difference is it's just gentrified. It's still the same people down there. It's just gentrification now, which is a lot better for me. So there was a program in there called Cross Purpose. They was giving out flyers in there. Yeah. It's a program out here in Colorado. It's it more or less helps people get out of poverty. Well, I had nothing to lose. I took the flyer, so did the other 50 people in the room. When I went to this program, the very next day, there was nobody that was in the food stamp office there with me. I'm like, well, why didn't anybody else come? We were all in there looking for assistance. I mean, obviously we all don't have nothing to lose. We all should have been in here. So anyway, I'm the only one in there. I took a chance, okay? They put me through these programs to, you know, learn resumes, which they didn't teach me while I was in prison. I had already had my welding certificates because I had learned how to weld while I was in prison. So that was the vocation that I brought home with me. I got I learned how to color culinary arts, learned how to cook, and numerous other different programs to educate myself to know how to maneuver in this new world because I was gone for 13 years. I went through this program. I ended up, through the program, I got a job making $24 an hour. And that's about 2 or 3 months after I buried my son. Things started moving for me because I knew, I said, I have to do this right. I have to do this right. So 8 months after being out, I ended up having my own place. I had 2 jobs, had my own vehicle. My relationship with my daughter and my son, his kids, he has 2 kids, 2 grandsons as well.
Right.
I knew that things had to get better for me, so I ended up graduating valedictorian from that program of Cross Purpose. I ended up watching my daughter walk across the stage from her graduation. We graduated 2 days apart. She graduated from high school, and I graduated from the program Cross Purpose.
Yeah.
And through that program, I decided to start my own nonprofit, my wife and I.
Yes.
And my nonprofit is called A True Change. We started this nonprofit because to deal with the at-risk youth in the neighborhood that we live in. My son was part of the at-risk youth. I believe that had I been a doctor or a lawyer, my son would have been a doctor or a lawyer. I believe that my son gravitated towards gangs because of the simple fact that I decided to start a gang and that I was a leader, or OG from the gang. So my son, the stories that he heard, I blame myself because of the simple fact that I know that had I done better, he wouldn't have gravitated down that path. So I decided to start my own business as well, and my own business, Burton Welding and Fabrications. All this in time, I've only been out of prison 2.5 years. I'm still on parole right now. I realized that if I succumb to what everybody believes and want me to do. They want me to retaliate. They want me to go across the boulevard and say, okay, hey, this is what y'all did to my son, so this is what we have to do. That's not what it's about.
Right.
That's never what it's about, because it's not going to change anything. It's not going to bring my son back. It's not going to bring anything of peace to the situation, but more pain. Me going back to prison, other things happening. That's not going to happen. So I made my mind up, and I made my mind to change, a conscious decision. And God has blessed me. He has showed me that if you believe in him, and if you follow him, no one can close the door that he has opened. It's that simple. Whether you on parole or not, my wife and I was blessed. I have a 7-month-old son. His name is Milan. And God is a God of second chances. He has showed me that, no matter what you go through, as long as you steadfast and believe and keep pushing forward, we go through the things that we go through in order to strengthen us to make us into the men and the women that we are today. That's just what it is. Everybody has a past. We all go through what we go through, but it's all about how you use it and how you give it back. Because if you use it in a negative way, like I did when my twin brother passed, it only involves more negative aspects into your life. Now I understood that, which is why I believe that what I'm doing now, the positive things, is going to continue to grow. Now I'm a coach, an empowerment coach at a middle school. I Grand Beacon Middle School out here in Denver, Colorado. I teach the EAYD program. It's called Empowering Youth Development Program to middle school, men of color. October the 6th, I was honored by the mayor of Denver with the MBK 25 award, My Brother's Keeper award. And I'm still doing all this while on parole. This is my point of saying this is, if you make your mind up to do something, it does not matter what people think of you. Don't care, and don't let it bother you of what they think of you, because people are still seeing what you're doing, and they're recognizing that no matter where you come from, they're seeing the person you are today, and this is who they believe. So I'm saying, at the end of the day, I'm a motivational speaker. I go speaking to these kids in and out of the state. Anybody that wants to listen, from 90 all the way down to 6, I get the same reaction. And I'm thankful because I'm now in the life of my family. And my daughter just had a daughter, so now I have 3 grandkids, 2 grandbabies, 2 grandboys, and a granddaughter. Yeah. So
now, with your
blessing all the way around.
I wanted to kind of get into the relationship with your grandboys, because of your son's death. How has that relationship manifested itself? And are you able to be a constant figure in their life? Are you able to mentor them as a father would? Even though you're the grandfather, how is that relationship going?
Well, I think the relationship is good. It's pretty steady. I think in the beginning, as far as that's concerned, it was so much confusion because, ultimately, my son's killer was her brother. So it was my kid's uncle, my grandson's uncle, who killed their dad. So that's, do you understand what I'm saying? So at the end of the day, we went through the trial, and the trial was hard. It was really, really hard. He ended up being convicted of my son's death, and also there was a young lady in the car, and she was paralyzed. So he ended up getting life plus 48 years. And this was, again, my daughter-in-law, her brother. So their uncle killed their father. So somewhere in there, I would say there's some I wouldn't say a disconnect, because I'm a part of my grandkids' lives. I am. But I think that on their behalf, they're not sure. Does that make sense what I'm trying to say? Because I didn't know them until I got out of prison. So I think it's more of a guilt thing, because their brother killed my son. So they don't know how to approach the situation. But I'm all the way open arms, and this is, as children of them, they don't know how to react to the situation. Does that make sense what I'm trying to say? So
Yeah.
There's still a growing period there of, having to be able to trust and believe that, we can get past this, if that makes sense to you.
Yes. Yes. No, I completely understand. I was just, I was thinking the how important it must be to you,
Very
given
important, exactly.
given what you've gone through, the time in prison, dealing with the guilt of your decisions, your son, his death, basically by following the exact same lifestyle that you had led. I would think it would be extremely important for you to be a part of their lives and guide them away from the same mistakes, to make sure that they get the right foothold and they have the right guidance to steer clear of all that. Because I just can't imagine how heartbroken you would be if you were to find out they fell into the same traps. And I know that you probably take a lot of responsibility for that guidance. And you said your son, your youngest son, now is 7 months old.
Yes. His name is Milan.
Congratulations.
Yes.
Congratulations.
Thank
That's
you, sir.
awesome.
Thank you.
That's awesome.
God is a God of second chances. Yes, He is.
Man, the story, your story is just so remarkable on so many levels. Just you've come through such darkness and experienced such victories. Now, you started your own nonprofit.
Yes, sir.
Okay, and you started your own welding business, right?
Yes, sir.
And you're also working with a middle school, you said?
Yes.
Well, you're just. How did you find time to talk to me?
Yeah. I'm also have you ever heard of the Executive Directors of Color Institute?
No, sir.
It's out here through the Denver. It's through the Denver Foundation. It's basically the Denver Foundation is the Executive Directors of Color Institute. That you for executive directors of color, Black, Hispanic, and you go through a program for about 2 years. And with that, it's basically they teach you the ins and outs of how the nonprofit is ran. I'm an actual 501c3. My nonprofit is. It's called A True Change.
A True Change.
A True Change is what it's called. This is going on it's about to be a couple years that we've had our nonprofit, my wife and I, 501c3.
Yeah. Well, okay. How is it that I know you're a man of faith now, and I can tell that your faith is strong, and that you're very convicted about your faith. But on a psychological level, how is it that you were able to stay so focused? And you, because you had a list of things. Maybe I should go back to this first. You had a list of things you wanted to accomplish. Okay. Will you tell us a little bit about those goals that you had written down and how that motivated you in furthering your education and moving along to getting your parole?
Well, for me, man, again, like I said, man, I believe in manifestation. So I wrote down a list, man, of things that I wanted to do. I want to be able to give back. I want to be able to give back to the community that I had, took so much from. I wanted to be a married man. I wanted to be, finding a good God-fearing woman, because I believe, with every good man, there should be a good woman. That's just 100%, because I believe it's a team thing. It's a support. You need support. We all do. Maybe we can do this by ourselves. We might think we can, but nah, not at all. I spoke these things. It's just a list of so many things. I just continued to speak them, though. And I spoke them for about maybe 5 or 6 years before I even got paroled. I had no idea when I was going to get paroled. And it's, crazy how God works. He will put you in places and put the people that are supposed to be in your life, that will allow you to maneuver and, strategically place you in the right place at the right time. And I could say that, I'm about halfway down the list of everything that I had spoke and manifested into existence. It's not easy. It's not, everybody has their issues. Everybody's going to have problems. But I think that as long as you still continue to, steadfast in what you believe in, keep your personal relationship with, with God, and understand that, can't nobody waver that. As long as you believe in what you believe in, you keep moving forward. And with the right support around you, positive influences, positive people that want to see you do better, that is what kept me focused, to be quite honest. Because I'll be honest, when I got out, everything started moving fast. So I just realized recently, not too long ago, man, that, I don't even really think I even really sat back and really mourn over my son, if that makes any sense, because everything was moving so fast. And when you have idle time, it's idle time to just get all the way back into some BS. That's just how it is. Yeah. And me staying moving and, them train wheels moving, it kept me so focused, and that's what allowed me. It's the people that was around me that believed in me as well.
Well, you're making a difference in people's lives. You have one of the coolest stories. One of the most interesting people I've ever talked to. Your life is just really, really amazing. I imagine that your son would be very, very proud of you.
Yes, sir.
And I think you did the right thing. I think by keeping yourself busy, I think you, like you said, idle time isn't good. It would allow things to manifest. I think by keeping yourself busy and and I always say this, act with a purpose. Don't just act with a purpose. Have your eyes on a goal and act with intent to reach that goal. You know what I'm saying? And I think you did that so wonderfully, getting out, and I truly admire what you've accomplished in such a short amount of time.
Thank you, sir. I appreciate that. I really do, man. It's cathartic. I'll be honest, man. When I speak, everything that I do is from the heart. I got a lovely wife behind me, Keisha. That's my wife, man. She's my 100% support system behind me. I got my kids behind me. I got my family behind me. They believe. They know, like, hey, hold on. If he changed, yeah, man, I think we should be following suit, because we know how he used to, move around, and this is a really, really good look. And again, it doesn't matter if I'm on parole or not on parole. I'm going to keep doing what I'm doing, man. And again, I'm still on parole while, making these different moves by the grace of God. And I'm so thankful. Right. So it's a constant decision, man. You make that decision, man. You keep it moving, and everything else will open up for you.
How much do you think that, and I could be misreading this, but it seems to me like in the atmosphere you were growing up in, correct me if I'm wrong, but in the atmosphere you were growing up in, it doesn't seem like you saw a lot of positive results. Is that fair to say? Okay. So whenever you tasted a little bit of power in the gang life, that had to feel like a positive, like you had actually accomplished something. Whether it was a positive or not, it felt like an accomplishment. Is that fair? Okay.
Yeah, I mean, yep, you're right.
And then when you went to prison 3 years in, you were seeing the negative suddenly. You were like, wait a second, this isn't what I thought it was, right?
Mm-hmm. Exactly, because there were more younger people, generation joining, and everybody turning it into something that it really wasn't from the beginning. And, yeah.
Right. And so now that you got out of prison and in the last year and a half, 2.5 years,
Mm-hmm.
you've been working within the boundaries of your faith and for specific goals with your future intent, with your future in mind, with your children in mind, with your grandkids in mind, and you see all these positive outcomes happening.
Yeah.
Is there any part of you that ever like reflects on your past, like when you're telling the story? Is there any part of you that ever looks back and says, you know what, the entire time I was doing these evil things and I was doing these things, gangbanging, the entire time I was doing that, what I was really looking for is the positivity and the productivity that I'm actually experiencing today?
Yeah. Actually, yeah. I regret everything, man, that I've ever done, and I realize now, man, that I don't think people understand, man. I've been from day one so remorseful for the things that I've done in my life, and I realized, man, that to be quite honest with you, man, there was a lot of pain, a lot of anger, a lot of frustration and confusion, man, that I was going through at the time, man, and where I come from, man, we don't talk to nobody, I'll be honest, you know what I'm saying? And I just keep it all the real minorities, black people, we just don't talk to people. We like, man, what can you do for my problems? You know what I'm saying? Let me try to solve them on my own. And usually, at the end of the day, depending on where your mind frame is, we usually go towards the negative side of trying to solve our problems. And I realize now that, I never talked about anything. I never spoke about anything. I always kept it in. I always held it in. So I realize that now speaking about it, it's very cathartic for me. It helps so many people. And I've never really realized that, just by me sharing my story alone, that honestly, I sent a video to this female, and she watched it. She is not my wife. Not sure how that happened. And she used to work for the Department of Corrections. That's scary. I don't know how that happened, because you ain't even supposed to do none of that. So with that being said, you never know how your story, how your past, how your life would change and influence other people to want to change as well. Does that make sense what I'm saying? Because they're thinking that they're going through so much right now. And then they say, okay, well, hold on. Look at all this that this man has came home to, has succumbed to, but yet, this is what I'm dealing with here. And these are the stories that have came to me. And like, look, man, thank you for sharing your story. I mean, these been judges, lawyers. I mean, I've talked to so many different people, and everybody's the same reaction. We all come from different backgrounds. Does that make sense what I'm saying?
Yes. Absolutely.
Yeah,
okay, so here's something I'm thinking, and you're triggering a lot of thoughts in my mind, and I'm just curious if this is like something that you put a lot of focus on. You do a lot of you do public speaking, and you tell your story,
yes,
and
sir.
you work with young kids.
Yes,
Excuse me. You work with young kids, trying to help them in steering clear of the gang life. But you had made a comment a second ago saying that in the black community, people don't talk about their problems. People don't want it, and maybe part of it is you don't want to be seen as weak, and I understand that. I'm
exactly what it is.
Yeah, I'm Southern. I get that. I know how that feels. And I think things are changing culturally to where for the better in this area, but it's still there's a lot of improvement that could be there. But not only that, you don't want to appear weak. You're like, oh, they have problems too. They don't have time for mine, right? So within your organization, how much time and energy, or if any, and maybe you hadn't even considered it, and maybe this is something that that will be in consideration in the future. But how much of it, that time and energy, not only are you out there giving, like, speaking publicly and telling your story, but how much of it is offering like therapy for these kids, where they can come and they can talk to you about the things they're seeing, the things they're experiencing, and discuss it with somebody who's been there and can relate to their plights that they're dealing with. Is that something y'all are doing?
Yes. There's a lot of, well, let me start like this. There's a lot of young people that I deal with, and when I go and speak, I speak to a lot of schools and high schools, and you just mentioned a situation that just recently happened last week. A young lady, I was in there speaking, and a young lady came up after I had spoke and shared my story, and she came up crying, said, I really would like for you to speak to my boyfriend. I'm afraid for him. I need someone for him to speak to. And she was persistent. We ended up meeting up a few days later, and her boyfriend actually asked if, he can really meet up. So just so happened he is a young Hispanic kid that comes from the same neighborhood that I come from, just on the other side of the block from where I grew up. The only difference is they're, Hispanic kids, and, we're just black from the other side. Well, after the few days of us talking, he shared a story, I shared mine. Again, this was connected through his girlfriend in her high school. He's not even in school. We had our conversations. Well, just yesterday he called from the resources and the things that we were allowed to help him with. He's starting to go back to school on Monday, and he's going to sign up for his college courses next year, at the top of the year. He's also getting housing as well. So from that conversation at that high school, his girlfriend pursued it, and now he's part of our outreach from what we do. And he was trying to get away from the gangs, and he's not even in the gangs yet. He just felt like he had to be involved because his family's involved, and he didn't know how. He's 17. He didn't know how to get out. And I told him exactly how. You have to push yourself away from that. And I told him you have to change the dark clothes that you wear. You can't dress like a gang member and say you're not a gang member and hang around with him. It doesn't work like that. So, with that being said, those are the type of reactions and the impulses that we get when we speak to these young kids. So if I can change one life, and it's communication with this young man right now. I mean, he should be over, matter of fact, tomorrow. But my point of saying all this is that young 17-year-old was my son at a point in time. There was a young man or a young woman out there mentoring my child. If it was a soccer coach, a football coach, a basketball coach, in their own way, they was mentoring my child, and they were saving my child's life. So this is why I do exactly what I do, is for these kids.
Yeah. Man, that's awesome, man. That's awesome. And that's where I was thinking you were talking about, man, we don't talk about this stuff. And I was like, I know how that feels. I wonder, are you offering them a place to go talk? And I love that. I love that. That is so awesome. Man, I can't gush over how much I admire you enough, man. I think what you're doing is just amazing. And your story,
yes, sir.
It's got to be told over and over and over again. And I hope that I just wanted to play a little part in that and have an opportunity to talk to you and dig in a little bit with you and expose people to your story, because it's one of the most remarkable stories that I've heard, as far as somebody turning their life around and doing it in such a short amount of time. And I know it's not been easy for you, but I think you're just a remarkable story, man.
Well, I appreciate that, man. And I mean, if you don't mind, if I plug my website, do you Truth Change? www.truthchange.org.
I'm sorry, man.
I'm sorry, go ahead.
I'm sorry. I was saying, yeah, go ahead. You plug. I was going to get to that here in a minute. I was going to let you plug everything you want.
Oh, yeah, all right, my bad.
So yeah, go go for it, man. What we got?
Yeah, man. Again, our nonprofit 501c3 is a True Change .org. So www.truechange.org, and my business is Burton Welding and Fabrications, and you can look that up, man. Check us out. We do mobile welding. We do outreach work for our nonprofit organization, Resources. Oh, and one more thing, we do annually a Christmas toy drive giveaway. So look that up, and if your family needs toys, look us up, see the procedure, and we can go from there. God bless. Thank you.
Thank you, man. Thank you for taking the time to talk with me, man. I really appreciate it.
Yes, sir. Well, thank you, man, and I hope that this is what you need, and I hope that it helps you and it works.
Well, if you can just hang on 1 second, I'm gonna wrap this up, and then I want to just talk to you for 1 second, man, and if you don't mind.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
All right, everybody. That was Stranger Encounters with Tarell Burton. I'm Tommy Salmons. Late.